The desperate signal Captain Zelara Moonwhisper stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Gentle Current, her translucent blue skin shimmering under the soft lights as she gazed at the mysterious planet before them. Zarian 7 hung in space. Like a jewel, its purple and silver surface marked with strange geometric patterns that could only be artificial. The Zephyrians had been peaceful explorers for over 800 years, their delicate forms perfectly suited for their low-gravity homeworld, and their gentle nature making them beloved throughout their corner of the galaxy. Captain called Dr. Kethis Starweaver from his science station, his long, slender fingers dancing over the holographic controls. The structures on the surface are definitely artificial. The energy readings suggest technology far beyond anything we've encountered. This could be the archaeological discovery of the millennium. Zelara's large, opalescent eyes sparkled with curiosity. Her people had always been driven by the desire to learn and understand rather than conquer or exploit. The ancient ruins below promised knowledge that could benefit all civilized species. "Prepare the survey teams," she ordered, her musical voice carrying the authority of her position. "But maintain standard protocols. We don't know who built these structures, or if they left any guardian systems behind." The survey of Zarian 7 proceeded smoothly for 3 standard days. The Zephyrian teams, consisting of archaeologists, xenolinguists, and cultural anthropologists, worked carefully to document and study the alien structures. Dr. Starweaver had never seen anything like the crystalline architecture that seemed to grow from the planet's surface, like living things frozen in time. The technology was clearly millions of years old, yet some systems still hummed with mysterious energy. On the 4th day, everything changed. The first sign of trouble came from Communications Officer Lyrian Sparkweave, a young Zephyrian fresh from the academy whose enthusiasm for first contact protocols had made her perfect for exploration missions. "Captain," she reported, her usually melodic voice tight with concern, "I'm detecting multiple hyperspace distortions at the edge of the system. Large ships moving in military formation." Zalara felt a chill run through her crystalline bones. The Zephyrians had encountered aggressive species before, but always at a distance. Their exploration fleets were specifically designed to avoid conflicts, relying on speed and stealth rather than weapons. "How many ships?" 17... "No, 20-3... "Captain, there are now over 40 vessels entering the system." Lyrian's voice cracked slightly. "Their design doesn't match any known species in our databases." Dr. Starweaver looked up from his archaeological data with growing alarm. "Captain, the energy signatures from these ruins. I think I know why those ships are here. This technology isn't just ancient, it's a weapon system. These structures could theoretically manipulate space-time itself." Before Zelara could respond, a massive shadow fell across their ship. Through the bridge windows, they could see one of the alien vessels approaching. It was enormous, easily 5 times the size of their exploration ship, with a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The design was purely functional, covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays that swept across the gentle current like the eyes of a predator. Communication system crackled to life with a harsh, guttural voice speaking in a language none of them recognized. But the universal translator quickly converted the words, and what they heard made Zalara's blood freeze. "Primitive scavengers, you will surrender immediately. This world and its technology now belong to the Voidborn Empire. Resist, and you will be destroyed." General Vexstar stood on the command deck of the Voidborn flagship Death's Edge, his massive form encased in biomechanical armor that enhanced his already formidable strength. The Voidborn were a warrior race that had conquered dozens of star systems, their philosophy simple: take what you want and destroy anything that stands in your way. His scarred face showed no emotion as he studied the small alien ship orbiting the planet they had come to claim. "Pathetic," Vexstar growled too. his subordinates. These creatures look like they would break if we breathed on them too hard. Still, they discovered this world first, which shows they have some value as scouts. Take their ship intact if possible. We can study their navigation data to find more worlds to conquer. The Zephyrians tried to flee, but their exploration vessel was never designed for combat. The void-born ships surrounded them easily, their tractor beams holding the gentle current like a fly in a web. Boarding pods launched from the enemy ships, their drill-tipped fronts punching through the Zephyrian hull with contemptuous ease. What followed was a nightmare that would haunt the survivors forever. The void-born soldiers that poured through. The breaches were killing machines, their armor-plated bodies moving with deadly efficiency. But they weren't trying to kill everyone, Zalara realized with growing horror. They were capturing the Zephyrians alive, stunning them with energy weapons, and dragging them away to unknown fates. Dr. Starweaver died trying to defend his research team, his frail body no match for a void-born warrior's claws. Communications. Officer Lyrian was stunned while trying to send a distress signal, her console exploding in sparks as the enemy soldiers overwhelmed the bridge. One by one, Zalara watched her crew fall until she was the only one left standing. General Vextar entered the bridge personally, his massive form having to duck through the doorway designed for the smaller Zephyrians. He studied Zalara with eyes like black holes, assessing her worth as a prisoner. "You are the leader of this vessel," he stated rather than asked. "Good. You will provide us with all your navigation data and star charts. Then you will watch as we harvest this world's technology and turn it against your pathetic civilization." "Why?" Zalara whispered, her voice barely audible. "We meant no harm. We're explorers, scientists. We could have shared our knowledge with you." Vextar's laugh was like grinding metal. "Because we can, little crystal bird. Because in this galaxy, only the strong survive, and the weak exist only to serve the strong. Your people will make excellent slaves once we've conquered your homeworld." But even as despair threatened to overwhelm her, Zalara remembered something. The Zephyrians might be physically weak, but they had always been clever. While the Voidborn had been focused on capturing the crew, she had managed to activate the ship's long-range communication array. Her message was already racing across the galaxy, a desperate plea for help broadcast on every frequency her ship could reach. Meanwhile, the Voidborn fleet began its assault on Zirion 7. Their massive ships bombarded the surface from orbit, not to destroy the ancient structures, but to clear away any defensive systems that might interfere with their plans. Vextar watched with satisfaction as his forces prepared to claim the ultimate prize, technology that could make the Voidborn Empire unstoppable. But in the depths of space, traveling faster than light across the vast distances between stars, a simple message continued its journey into the unknown. "This is Captain Zalara, Moon Whisperer of the Zephyrian Exploration Fleet. We have discovered ancient technology on Zirion 7 that could threaten all civilized life if it falls into the wrong hands. We are under attack by a species calling themselves the Void-Born Empire. They have taken our crew prisoner and plan to use this technology for conquest. If anyone receives this message, please help us. Don't let them succeed." The message reached many civilizations throughout that sector of the galaxy. Most dismissed it as not their problem, or were too afraid of the Voidborn's reputation to intervene. The few who might have helped were too far away to arrive in time. But there was one species that received the signal with very different eyes. Admiral Sarah Ironstorm. Chan was reviewing fleet readiness reports in her office aboard the orbital station above Earth when Lieutenant Commander Jackson burst through her door without permission. In the 3 years she had commanded Earth's Deep Space Defense Command, Jackson had never violated protocol like this, which meant whatever he had found was important enough to risk his career. "Admiral," Jackson said breathlessly, We've intercepted an alien distress signal. Ma'am, there's an entire species being enslaved, and they're asking for help. Chun was a veteran of the Mars colonial wars and the Jupiter mining conflicts, a woman who had earned her reputation for being harder than the hull armor of her ships. Her gray eyes could freeze plasma, and her tactical mind had never lost a major engagement. But she had also sworn an oath when she joined the Terran Defense Corps to protect Earth and her children, wherever they might be found among the stars. Asterisk. Show me, Chun ordered Dot as she listened to Captain Zalara's desperate plea. Translated by Earth's most advanced xenolinguistic computers, Admiral Chun felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the cold fury that had earned her the nickname Iron Storm. Somewhere out there, people were suffering and calling for help. People who had done nothing wrong except discover something that monsters wanted to steal. How far? She asked simply. 37 light years, Admiral. We could be there in 6 days with the new hyperspace drives. Chun studied the tactical data streaming in from Earth's deep space monitoring stations. The Void-born Empire wasn't in any of their databases, which meant they were dealing with an unknown enemy of unknown capabilities. Military doctrine suggested gathering more intelligence before committing forces. Political wisdom suggested staying out of alien conflicts that didn't directly threaten Earth. Admiral Chun had never been particularly interested in doctrine or political wisdom. Signal the Third Fleet, she ordered. Full battle deployment. Every ship we can spare. Maximum armament. Load out. And get me Colonel Rodriguez. If we're going to war, I want the best ground commander we have ready to deploy. Admiral, Jackson said carefully, we're talking about intervening in a conflict between species we've never encountered. We don't know their capabilities, their technology, or their intentions. This could be the start of something much larger than a rescue mission. Chun turned to look out at the stars through her office window, where the lights of Earth's orbital defense platforms twinkled like constellations. Somewhere out there, people were dying while calling for help. The fact that they weren't human didn't matter. The fact that helping them might be dangerous didn't matter. What mattered was that someone had reached out across the void and asked for help, and Earth's children had heard the call. Then we'd better be ready for whatever comes next, Admiral Chun said quietly. Because the one thing we're not going to do is let innocent people die while we stand by and watch. Signal all ships. Prepare for immediate hyperspace jump. We're going to show this void-born empire what happens when they pick on someone with friends who don't know how to back down. The order went out across Earth's defense network like wildfire. In shipyards orbiting Mars, the massive battlecruiser Indomitable finished loading its missile batteries. At the Jupiter Naval Station, the carrier Enterprise 7 launched its squadrons of fighter craft for final combat checks. Throughout the solar system, humanity's war machine awakened with the terrible efficiency that had made Earth's children legendary among the stars. Colonel Marcus Reaper Rodriguez received his deployment orders while training his Marines in zero-gravity combat on Titan Station. The stocky, dark-haired officer had earned his reputation in the brutal fighting on Europa, where his tactical brilliance and absolute refusal to abandon wounded comrades had made him a legend among the Corps. When his aide handed him the mission briefing, Rodriguez read it twice before speaking. Alien rescue mission, he muttered, then looked up at his assembled troops. Listen up, Marines. We've got civilians in trouble, and it's our job to get them out. I don't care if they're purple, have tentacles, or breathe methane. Someone called for help, and we're going to answer. Gear up for full combat deployment. We leave in 4 hours. As Earth's fleet prepared for war, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked frantically in her xenobiology lab to understand what they might be facing. As the Terran Defense Corps' leading expert on alien life forms, she had studied every species humanity had encountered. The Voidborn were completely unknown, but their behavior patterns suggested a militaristic culture focused on conquest and expansion. "They're slavers," she reported to Admiral Chun during a final briefing before departure. "Based on the limited data in the distress signal, they capture other species and use them as forced labor. The victims, these Zephyrians, appear to be a peaceful exploration culture, physically fragile but highly intelligent." Chun nodded grimly. "What about combat capabilities?" "Unknown, but their fleet size suggests significant military strength. Admiral, I have to ask, are we sure about this? We're potentially starting a war with a species that might be technologically superior." Admiral Chun looked around the briefing room at the faces of her officers. These were people who had volunteered to stand between Earth and any threat that might emerge from the darkness between the stars. They were asking her to lead them into battle against an unknown enemy to save. People they had never met. And not one of them looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. "Dr. Vasquez," Chun said quietly, 60 years ago, when the Centauri expedition was cut off and under attack by those crystal entities, my grandfather was part of the rescue fleet that went to save them. He told me something I've never forgotten. Sometimes you don't help people because it's safe or easy or profitable. Sometimes you help them because it's the right thing to do. And because if you don't, you can't look at yourself in the mirror the next morning." She stood up, her uniform bearing the scars and decorations of a lifetime spent in service to humanity. "We're going because someone asked for help, and because that's what Earth's children do. We stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. We fight battles that need fighting, whether they're our battles or not. And we make sure that anyone who thinks they can hurt innocent people learns what happens when they mess with a Deathworld species that doesn't know when to quit." The Third Fleet departed Earth's solar system 18 hours after receiving the Zephyrian distress signal. 47 ships of the line, carrying the finest weapons and warriors humanity could deploy, racing across the void toward a distant star where strangers were dying and calling for help. None of them knew that they were about to become legendary throughout the galaxy, or that their actions would change the balance of power among the stars forever. They only knew that someone needed help, and Earth's children had heard the call. Deathworld Fury unleashed the Zarian 7 system was quiet when the human fleet arrived, dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge, like ghosts materializing from the void. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of her flagship Thunderstrike, studying the tactical display that showed the Voidborn fleet surrounding the ancient planet. 43 enemy vessels against her 47 ships. The odds looked even, but Chun had learned long ago that numbers rarely told the whole story. "Stealth reconnaissance complete, Admiral," reported Commander Hayes from the sensor station. "The enemy fleet is maintaining orbit around Zarian 7. They appear to be conducting some kind of excavation operation on the surface. We're detecting multiple prison ships holding what appear to be the survivors from the alien distress signal." General Vextar was in an excellent mood as he supervised the extraction of ancient technology from Zarian 7's surface. His engineers had already identified 3 major installation sites where the mysterious builders had left their most powerful devices. Within days, the Voidborn Empire would possess weapons capable of reshaping space itself. The captured Zephyrians would be useful as interpreters once they were properly broken, and their homeworld would make an excellent target for testing their new capabilities. That was when his sensor officer brought him news that changed everything. "General," the subordinate reported nervously, "we have detected an unknown fleet at the edge of the system. 47 vessels, configuration unknown. They appear to be maintaining position and observing us." Vextar studied the sensor data with growing interest rather than concern. In his experience, any species bold enough to approach a void-born fleet was either incredibly stupid or incredibly dangerous. Given that they were maintaining distance rather than attacking immediately, he suspected stupidity. Broadcast standard. Surrender demands. If they refuse, destroy half their fleet and see if that changes their attitude. But the response that came back was unlike anything the Void-born had ever encountered. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Corps, 3rd Fleet. You are currently engaged in acts of aggression against a peaceful species and the enslavement of sentient beings. You will immediately release all prisoners and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. Vextar's scarred face twisted into what might have been a smile. Terran? I have never heard of this species. Send them the standard response. Package. Show them what happens to insects who threaten the Void-born Empire. The standard response package was a coordinated assault by 10 Void-born destroyers, designed to demonstrate overwhelming firepower and break enemy morale before any serious fighting began. It had worked on every species the Void-born had encountered for the past 2 centuries. Against the humans, it lasted exactly 47 seconds. Colonel Rodriguez watched the engagement from the Marine Command Center aboard the assault carrier Normandy, his experienced eyes analyzing how the human ships moved and fought compared to their opponents. Well, I'll be damned, he muttered, as the last Void-born destroyer exploded in a ball of superheated plasma. The Admiral wasn't kidding about these boys being overconfident. What had just happened defied everything the Void-born knew about space. Combat. Their destroyers were heavily armored, battle-tested designs that had crushed dozens of alien fleets. The human ships were smaller, more maneuverable, and had done something impossible. They had used the Void-born's superior firepower against them. Instead of trying to match the aliens' heavy weapons, the human ships had moved in coordinated patterns. That forced the Void-born to fire into their own formations. Instead of standing and trading shots, they had used speed and precision to target critical systems and turn the enemy ships into debris in minutes. Dr. Vasquez studied the combat data from her position in the fleet's mobile laboratory, her xenobiological training helping her understand something that the tactical officers might miss. Admiral, she reported over the communications link, the enemy's response to our engagement suggests a psychology based on dominance and intimidation. They're not used to opponents who fight back effectively. This might be their first encounter with a species that doesn't immediately surrender. General Vextar stared at the empty space where 10 of his ships had been just minutes before, his mind struggling to process what had happened. The unknown aliens had moved like nothing he had ever seen, their ships dancing through space with a precision that seemed almost alive. And their weapons had cut through Void-born armor like it was made of crystallized atmosphere. Analysis, he demanded from his tactical officer. General, their technology appears to be roughly equivalent to ours, but their tactics are completely different from any species in our databases. They use coordinated group movements and focus fire in ways that maximize damage while minimizing their own exposure. It's as if they've spent centuries learning how to fight enemies with superior firepower, which, Dr. Vasquez could have told them, was exactly what humanity had done. Earth was a world where everything tried to kill everything else, where survival required constant adaptation and innovation. Humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to defeat larger, stronger, better-armed opponents through intelligence, cooperation, and sheer bloody-minded determination. Admiral Chun opened a channel to the Void-born flagship. General Vextar, I'm going to assume that's your name, based on the communications chatter we've been monitoring. You have 30 minutes to release all prisoners and begin withdrawing from this system. After that, we're going to show you why picking fights with strangers is a bad idea. Vextar's response was to order a full fleet assault. 33 Void-born warships moved toward the human fleet in a coordinated attack formation that had conquered star systems. They were met by something they had never encountered before: opponents who had been born and raised on a world where everything was trying to kill them, and who had turned that constant struggle into the deadliest military doctrine in the galaxy. Battle of Zirion 7 lasted 3 hours and became legendary throughout civilized space for decades afterward. Military academies across dozens of species would study the engagement, trying to understand how a slightly smaller fleet had achieved such a decisive victory. The answer was simpler than they realized. The humans fought like they were still on Earth, where losing meant extinction and victory meant living to see another day. Captain Lisa Viper Stone commanded the destroyer, Relentless, one of Earth's newest and most advanced warships. She had earned her call sign in the Jupiter asteroid belt, where her ability to maneuver her ship through the most dangerous combat zones had saved countless lives. Now she found herself dancing through space with 5 other destroyers, coordinating their movements like a pack of wolves bringing down prey 10 times their size. "Target the sensor arrays on that battleship," she ordered her weapons officer. "Blind them first, then we can pick them apart at our leisure." The Void-born battleship World Crusher was a massive vessel designed to bombard planets into submission. Its captain, Admiral Thrax, had destroyed the homeworlds of 3 different species and considered himself one of the Empire's greatest military minds. He watched in growing frustration as the small human ships refused to fight the way enemies were supposed to fight. "They won't stand still and trade shots," he complained to his tactical officer. "They keep moving, hitting us from different angles. How are we supposed to demonstrate our superiority when they won't let us use our heavy weapons?" That was exactly the point. The humans had studied the preliminary engagement and identified the Void-born weakness. They were used to fighting opponents who tried to match their firepower directly against enemies who used speed, precision, and coordination instead of brute force. Their massive weapons were almost useless. Meanwhile, Colonel Rodriguez was preparing for the part of the battle he understood best: close quarters combat. His Marines were loaded into assault shuttles, waiting for the signal to deploy. But first, they needed to understand what they were fighting. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Zellara Moonwhisper had managed to escape her prison cell during the chaos of the space battle, and had activated an emergency transmitter hidden in her ship's wreckage. Her weak signal was picked up by Dr. Vasquez's monitoring equipment. "This is Captain Zellara of the Zephyrian exploration vessel Gentle Current," came the translated message. "If anyone can hear this, the Voidborn are holding approximately 200 of my people in the prison ships orbiting the planet. They're also forcing captured technicians to help them excavate ancient weapons from the surface. Please help us. Dr." Vasquez immediately forwarded the message to Admiral Chun, who was coordinating the fleet battle from her command center. "Admiral, we have confirmation of prisoner locations and enemy ground operations. The Voidborn are trying to secure ancient technology that could pose a threat to the entire galaxy if they succeed." Chun made her decision instantly. "Colonel Rodriguez, you're cleared for ground assault. Secure those prisoners and stop whatever the Voidborn are digging up down there. Dr. Vasquez, you're going with him. If we're dealing with ancient alien technology, I want our best xenarchaeologist on scene." Rodriguez grinned as he received his orders. Space battles were impressive to watch, but ground combat was where Marines proved their worth. "Marines!" He called over the battalion communication system. "We've got prisoners to rescue and bad. Guys to kill. Remember your training. Watch each other's backs, and show these alien slavers what happens when they mess with people under Terran protection." The assault on the Voidborn ground positions began with something the enemy had never Seen before, humans using their homeworld's deadly environment as tactical inspiration. Instead of landing directly at the excavation sites, where they would face concentrated enemy fire, Rodriguez's Marines used the planet's severe weather patterns and volcanic activity to mask their approach. Sergeant Major Patricia Bulldog Williams led the assault on Prison Ship 7, where Captain Zilara and the surviving Zephyrians were being held. Williams had earned her nickname during the siege of Titan Station, where she had held a critical corridor against overwhelming odds for 6 hours while wounded. Now she found herself face to face with Void-born soldiers for the first time. The aliens were impressive, 3 meters tall, heavily armored, and equipped with weapons that could punch through tank armor. They were also completely unprepared for opponents who moved like Williams and her Marines. The humans used every dirty trick evolution had taught them: ambush tactics, coordinated teamwork, and the absolute refusal to quit, even when the odds looked impossible. Contact front. Williams called as her squad encountered a Void-born patrol. Remember, these boys are big and tough, but they're used to fighting enemies who scare easy. Show them what Earth's children look like when they're angry. The firefight that followed would have been impossible to predict based on the physical differences between the combatants. The Void-born were larger, stronger, and better armed. The humans were smaller, faster, and had spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to kill things that were bigger than they were. Captain Zilara watched in amazement as the human Marines tore through her captors like a force of nature. She had expected the rescue, if it came at all, to be a desperate struggle between roughly equal forces. Instead, she was witnessing something that defied her understanding of combat: the systematic destruction of supposedly superior enemies by opponents who seemed to treat impossible odds as a personal insult. "This way," called Dr. Vasquez as she led the freed Zephyrian prisoners toward the extraction point. "Stay close and keep moving. We're getting you out of here." Zilara found herself running alongside the human xenobiologist, marveling at how someone who was obviously a scientist moved with the confidence of a warrior. "How?" she gasped as they ran. "How are your people doing this? The Void-born have conquered dozens of species." Dr. Vasquez helped a wounded Zephyrian over a pile of rubble, her attention split between rescue operations and her scientific curiosity about their new alien allies. "Where we come from," she explained, "everything is trying to kill you from the moment you're born. Weather, animals, plants, bacteria, even the planet itself. We've spent millions of years learning how to survive when the universe wants us dead. These Void-born are tough, but they're not tougher than home." Meanwhile, Colonel Rodriguez was leading the assault on the main excavation site where General Vixtar had established his command center. The ancient alien structures rose from the planet's surface like crystalline mountains, their strange geometries suggesting technology beyond current understanding. But Rodriguez wasn't particularly interested in archaeology at the moment. Demolition's team set charges on those excavation platforms, he ordered. "Whatever these things are digging up, we're not going to let them have it. Science team, get readings on everything you can before we blow it up." General Vextar made his last stand in the central excavation chamber, surrounded by the ancient technology his empire had died trying to claim. The massive Void-born general was an impressive sight even in defeat, his biomechanical armor sparking from battle damage as he faced Colonel Rodriguez across the alien control room. "You have won this battle, human," Vextar admitted, his voice filled with something between respect and hatred. "But you do not understand what you have cost us. This technology could have made the Void-born Empire unstoppable. We could have ruled the galaxy." Rodriguez looked around at the crystalline structures humming with ancient power, then back at the alien general who had been willing to enslave entire species to claim them. "General," he said quietly, Where I come from, we have a saying. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Maybe it's better that nobody gets to rule the galaxy. The ancient technology was destroyed in a controlled demolition that sent shockwaves across 3 star systems. Whatever the mysterious builders had created was too dangerous for anyone to possess, human or alien. But the rescue of the Zephyrians and the defeat of the Void-born fleet sent a different kind of shockwave across civilized space. Captain Zilara stood on the bridge of Admiral Chun's flagship as the human fleet prepared to escort the Zephyrian survivors home. Through the viewports, she could see the wreckage of the Void-born fleet drifting in space like monuments to the folly of thinking might made right. Her people were free, the ancient weapons were destroyed, and an entire empire had learned that some lines should never be crossed. Admiral Chun, she said formally, how can the Zephyrian people ever repay this debt? You risked everything to save strangers you had never met. Admiral Chun looked out at the stars where other species were, probably watching and wondering about the humans who had appeared from nowhere to challenge one of the galaxy's most feared empires. Captain Zilara, she said quietly, there's no debt. Someone called for help, and we answered. That's what neighbors do for each other. Dr. Vasquez was documenting everything she could learn about Zephyrian culture and biology, fascinated by the differences and similarities between their species. This is just the beginning, she told Admiral Chun during the voyage back to Zephyrian space. Word of what we did here is going to spread throughout the galaxy. Every species that's ever been bullied by a stronger neighbor is going to be watching to see what we do next. She was right. The Battle of Zarian 7 marked the beginning of humanity's reputation as the galaxy's protectors, the species that would travel across the stars to help strangers in need. The Zephyrians became Earth's first true allies among the stars. Their gratitude and friendship opening doors to dozens of other peaceful civilizations who had been waiting for someone strong enough to stand up to the bullies. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed the strange new species from a small blue world in the Orion Arm. The humans had proven that they were not just another predator species seeking to expand their territory. They were something new, warriors who fought not for conquest or glory, but for the simple principle that no one should have to suffer alone when help was possible. Colonel Rodriguez summed it up best in his after-action report, The Void-born. Empire made the mistake of thinking that might made right, and that the strong could do whatever they wanted to the weak. They learned the hard way that there's always someone stronger, someone tougher, someone more determined. Today, that was us. Tomorrow, it might be someone else. But as long as Earth's children are out here among the stars, nobody gets to hurt innocent people without answering to us. The message reached every corner of civilized space. Earth's children had heard the call, and they had answered with the full fury of a death-world species that had never learned how to quit. The galaxy would never be the same as the human fleet escorted their new Zephyrian friends toward home. Admiral Chun stood on her bridge and wondered what other calls for help might be traveling through space at that very moment. Somewhere out there, other innocents might be suffering. Other bullies might think they could do whatever they wanted without consequences. She found herself looking forward to proving them wrong. Asterisk.